All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 18th meeting of the Underhill Planning Commission. Are there any additions to the agenda? I have one, which I guess would be just Brad Holden asked that we formally acknowledge, I guess, that we received a notice of examination of premises and public hearing regarding winter maintenance of the northerly portion of Town Highway number 2, Class 3 Town Highway known as Mountain Road. So we received it. And that we received the Mount Mansfield Co-location Corporation monitoring report under land use permit 5L1442. Is as exciting reading as it sounds. I have right to dig in.
No need to dig in. I think the cover note says it all.
So we have also received that regarding ambient RF field levels. Okay.
So the winter maintenance schedule is that the select board has to hold a hearing to let the community know that the town is not going to maintain Mountain Road past a certain point, starting when winter weather sets in. I think that probably happens every year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is RF frequency. So anytime there's transmission towers for cell phones and radio, TV signals located in or nearby a town boundary, the operator of that equipment is required to test for stray radio frequency emissions and radiation that could be harmful to nearby people and residences. And we're also far away from the towers on Mount Mansfield, and it's probably never going to be an issue. And it's certainly, this document affirms that it's not an issue. That's it.
Should we add an agenda item to investigate whether this is actually Russian radio transmissions? Or is it just me? Yeah, okay. All right, we'll skip that. There's no public comment, so we can skip over that. Oh, I don't have my agenda. Can I cheat?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. That takes us to finalize survey, which I think we can start without, Zach.
We could.
Don't you?
Yeah,
okay.
I'd bring it up.
Yeah. So we're going to finalize the survey, background, handout drafts, and marketing plan on this community wastewater system. I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at those things that Zach sent around earlier.
I
found a typo.
I looked at what was posted online.
Yeah.
The only thing I have a question about was the project information sheet.
Yeah.
It looks the same as it did last meeting, but I know we talked about being.
This one?
Well, I don't know. I'm looking
the
at
project information handout. No, it's definitely different. Unless did you see the second set of links he sent around where he sent bad links the first time?
I don't know.
I did.
But this takes me to the website. Like, shouldn't it be updated on the website?
It should be, but I
Yes.
got it pretty late today, so I wasn't able to post the latest.
So
version,
he
but I
sent
haven't.
around a second version that includes potential drawbacks.
Okay, yeah, that drawbacks part I didn't see.
But there's a big typo in it. He copied and pasted on accident. The last 3 bullet points are actually the benefit from up above. So it lists 2 drawbacks correctly, and then it goes and lists 3 things that are actually benefits above. So we just need to delete them.
So is that under next steps?
It's under potential on page 2. It might not be in here.
Somebody needs a copy. They're here.
It's not in it because he sent a second link with updated. So that's the first one. Here we go. Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, I was gonna say it didn't look different to me, so I was like, "What are we reviewing?"
There should be 2 of them.
And I did find another issue in the information sheet, which I had a comment on. It's up on the screen now. So the estimated cost for design, permitting, and construction to building a new individual lot septic system, he put in $50,000 to $100,000. And I asked Brad about that. Brad called his favorite local wastewater engineer and said, "Well, what does it really cost?" And he said, "Well, it depends, but in an in-ground system is probably more like 12,000, in 12 to 15,000, and then a mound system might be $30,000 to $50,000." it's all more expensive to put in a mound system. But I don't think we should put in $50,000 to $100,000 because it doesn't pass the straight face test.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So should we say,
Well,
I
maybe,
thought you specifically said yours
Ours
was
was
60,000.
60.
So
Ours
should we
was
say
60.
to 60?
well, if you say a tradition, if you specify as like traditional system costs 12 grand,
Mhm.
mound system up to 60 grand,
60,000.
something like that.
And
just to-
ours probably was because we have a wetland going right through the center of our backyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tim is the representative builder. Do you agree with those numbers? Sorry, retired builder.
You have to put one in a while, but from like 6 or 7 years ago, it was like 30,000.
Yeah, so
Pretty good
pre-pandemic,
size system,
or,
but-
yeah, pre-pandemic it was 30.
So double now.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're
And then
gonna,
those 3 bullet points.
yeah, those should,
There.
that's maximum. David, did you have anything else as you read through it, or do you want to reserve comment until you can?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
I thought it did a pretty good job now of
Yeah.
laying out the pluses and minuses, and just kind of like no one could say, oh, you didn't give me the whole picture, which is the whole
Yep.
point. So,
And I do have some updates once we get through this draft, these drafts.
okay.
One other update.
Did people see the survey where he added in the questions about taxes? That was an updated link too. So I'll read it. I'll read it to you. He basically added 2 questions. Are you in favor of a community wastewater project if an increase to taxes or a bond is required to fund a development? Yes, no, unsure. 1 location under consideration for the community wastewater project includes the Browns River Middle School grounds. Are you in favor of this location? Yes, no, unsure.
Okay.
Which is what he said he was going to do. So.
I mean, that's the fact sheet, so.
Yeah.
Good.
Does everyone feel good about the survey? Larry, I see you have something else.
So Kate McCarthy, who works at Chittenden Regional Planning, has been working with the town of Jericho to move this project forward for Jericho. And she wanted to check in with me about where we were at with it. And I spelled out what we've done so far, what we're working on with the survey and the info sheet. And she said, oh, by the way, did you know that Jericho is contracted with the engineering firm Du Bois and King to do this next phase preliminary engineering study? And one of the things that Du Bois and King is doing is they've prepared their own survey for people who live within the potential service area for this project in Jericho. And she mentioned that they had this specific question here for the folks in the proposed service area. And she read it to me, and I thought, well, that's brilliant. I mean, why are we asking that question on our survey? So I'm going to bring it up on the screen here. It's in yellow here. So if this system were available, would you be more likely to build additional living space, convert your home to a duplex, or add an accessory apartment? So it's not just asking, like, do you want to take your house off your on-site septic and put it on the new system, but would you actually take advantage of that opportunity to build additional living space, whether it's for you or for someone else, like as a rental? And I thought that was brilliant because, I mean, that's kind of the point. You know, there might be people who are satisfied with their on-site septic for their own house, but they might think, well, you know, now that this additional capacity is going to be available, rather than rebuild my own on-site septic, I can just, you know, run a pipe and hook up to this new system. Then it makes it much more affordable for me to build an ADU on my property, or to add an accessory apartment over the garage or whatever. That it would be really helpful feedback to get people started thinking about it, which is one of the main purposes of this survey.
Everyone agree we should
Good
have that?
question.
Yeah, that's a good
For
question.
sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So Larry, would the next step be a motion to approve these, or do we just kind of wait for David and Zach to be at the next meeting and go through the launch plan? Does this really need a motion?
Well, so one caveat from talking to Kate today is that, we have in the information sheet, the cover sheet, this kind of placeholder for a link to a web page that doesn't exist yet, to get more information. And I think we agreed that having a landing place on the web for people to get more information that is available just through the cover sheet and the questionnaire, it is a really important asset to move this forward, because without it, people, a lot of people are going to have all these questions that are popping up, and they're going to take the front porch forum to start saying, well, why didn't they tell us, blah, blah, blah. So Kate and I talked about that a little bit, and she feels like it's not going to happen next week, but it could be doable by the beginning of October. And she thought it might be, if we're amenable to hold it off for at least a couple weeks until there's something up on the web, that could be very helpful. So, we could, for example, with these changes, give preliminary approval pending an actual web page that could be linked. And meanwhile, I could mount the survey on a Google Forms. I could create it on Google Forms with, the branching logic as far as whether you're in or out of the proposed service area. And that way, when the new web page is up and ready to go, we could create the link and embed it in the survey or the cover sheet.
I have a random, not to sound like an actual conspiracy theorist, despite my RF joke, but how does it know that you're actually in Underhill? Does it read your IP address? Or, what if
Jen sounds like she doesn't know about
what if a secret cabal from whatever wants
What
to
if they have a
raid the
secret cabal
survey
on your
result?
VPN?
Jericho wants to rig our, what?
Yeah.
How do they know that? All kidding aside.
It's your IP address.
It's your IP address.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
if you have a
It's
VPN that can't some VPNs mask your IP?
Yes, it can, but it would depend on the VPN that you were using. I use a VPN to work.
Right.
And so I have some level of safety there.
Yeah.
It would be harder to geo-target me based on me using my VPN, because when I VPN in, it thinks I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Right.
Oh.
So yes, that could technically happen, but say you're just taking it on your phone or something
That's not
like
most
that.
people, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah. As long as, like you said, there's not some.
Secret cabal. trying to
Yeah.
rig
Yeah.
your cabal.
Yeah. There's not underground, bunker with 8 million people on Underhill IP VPN.
You have thought about this.
That's right. All right, I feel pretty good. There's not a
the most likely scenario would be that if there's people who see this whole project as a big threat to the community, they might send the link to the survey to their friends and neighbors and say, well, if you think this is a bad idea, do this survey and complete it multiple times.
Yeah.
But the thing is I think on Google Forms, you can actually block multiple responses
Yeah, you
from
can.
the same IP addresses, so that would take care of that
Okay.
if it happens.
They can do the fake mailers like Richmond.
First of all, that's an unbelievable story. We probably shouldn't talk about that on the recording, but wow.
Your fault, man. Sorry.
Okay, so do we need a motion to do what you said, Larry, or are you just for you to get started on this process? Or
I think it's
just
fine
go
just
for
for me to start working on it. And I think out of respect for Zach and David, that it would be nice to make sure that they're okay with the changes.
Oh, for
as
sure.
well.
Yeah, they did all the work.
They did the work, so this is their baby.
Okay.
So create key forms for survey, and probably a poster too, because we talked about having some hard copies available
Yeah, for sure.
at Jericho Market and other locations here at Town Hall. So, I can create a poster with a little QR code on it to get to the survey when it's ready. That way people, if they see the poster up and their way into Jericho Market, they can hold up their phone and go right to this, get it, link right to the survey.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Maybe you can do a music video with your band that encourages people to take the survey.
Oh boy.
Take it to the next level. Okay. By the way, before we go to the next agenda item, speaking of VT Digger and the Richmond article, which is not there's a really long article on housing in VT Digger, if you're
Yes.
interested, like long. But it's all about housing and like maybe what's working, what's not working, I would say. But if you're interested in housing in Vermont, I would say it's a good article. I thought it was a good article. I
Yeah.
liked it a lot, so.
It was.
Yeah, I just read it this afternoon. It was a research to try to compile how many units were built in Vermont since the start of the pandemic era funding, like the ARPA funding and the state investments in affordable housing and municipal investments and private nonprofit investments in affordable housing. And it's a lot of units. I mean, I think they said over 1,200 statewide.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money, yes, yeah. And a significant chunk of those were affordable units, which is good because you're using public money, it should be that way.
Yeah.
But they featured examples from Shelburne and from way up in the kingdom, like on the Canadian border.
Yeah, I don't
Canaan.
remember the name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So.
Anyway, interesting read if you're interested in housing.
Where is it again?
It's VT Digger.
Yeah.
It's,
Oh,
yeah,
VT
VT
Digger.
Digger. Yeah, it's the main.
Yeah.
Well, for now, it's the headline article. It's like a 10-minute read or something.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
a pretty long article.
It's chunky.
Anyway, now that I'm done doing my unpaid promotional ad for VT Digger, yeah. That takes us to priorities for the land use regs for the rest of this year. As you can see, we have 40 minutes devoted to this because we're trying to schedule out the rest of our year. So, did you have a framework you wanted to do this in?
Yeah.
Where did these, like, how did this?
It's a combo. I'll be quiet and let Larry do it because it's a combo of a couple different sources.
Get to it here.
And then, of course, if there's something that is not here that you feel should be, we can add it.
Okay, so I created this little chart here that we could fill in when we figure out what we want to work on.
You can just delete that December 18th one right now, Larry, because that is the holiday party.
It's been on your mind, man. You really
I live for the holiday party, Jeff.
You brought it up.
got a daily reminders calendar. December 18th holiday party.
It's one of those, it's like a 90-day advent calendar,
Yeah.
right? With chocolates.
Wow.
Oh. Okay, so we talked about this briefly at the last meeting, or no, we didn't. We tabled it. Sorry. So what I did was I created this draft, and I broke it down into several categories. So categories are, number one, things that I spotted in my review of the land use regs that are either required or would be required if we go forward with this municipal wastewater project in Underhill Flats. And these all seem to me to be things that should be fixed sooner than later. The first one is the highest priority, but then the rest of them, are sort of logical to tackle at the same time. And then the second category is pro-housing policies that are recommended in the 2020 housing study that the town paid for with the municipal planning grant that Brandy Saxton and her team did. And these are all fairly self-evident things around reducing the lot sizes, minimum lot sizes, lot frontages, and also specifying a maximum residential density for minimum lot size in all zoning districts. So just really cleaning it up to make it less burdensome to meet requirements to build a house, particularly in the village districts. And then the third category are some recommended technical updates that the DRB has uncovered in their project reviews. And I won't get into the details at the moment, but These are all things that are pretty straightforward fixes, I think. And then the last one was, last category, which is only one item in, is issues that were raised by the zoning administrator. This is the new zoning administrator who caught something that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So those are the 4 categories. And my thought is that we could kind of look at these and decide. I don't think it's worth, like, probably none of these is worth scheduling an entire planning commission topic just for that, considering that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought was that, we could hopefully think about ways to bunch these together. And then I could start working on it, especially as I slot them into calendar for the upcoming meetings, and start cranking out some drafts for the commission to consider ahead of each meeting. And, that's really it. I don't have a whole lot of deep thought about most of this stuff, but what I have the most experience with is the 1 through 5 in the first category, because we did the same thing exactly in Charlotte. We made some changes based on how the legislature changed the law in Act 47 and Act 181, because it was just the town bylaws were no longer compliant with those required statutes.
I have a question, Larry.
Yeah.
Which would go 1 through 5, made me think of it. Not to keep talking about the news, but I saw that Governor Scott sent some executive order today. Does that have anything in it? Did you look, not to put you on the spot.
We were talking about
If you don't know the answer, like next meeting, but is there anything from that we need to address between now and December?
There are some things we'll need to talk about, for sure. And it's so new that
Right, it's brand new.
Yeah, nobody's really had a chance to interpret or think about it much. But
So what is this again? Is this a law that was passed?
executive order from Governor Scott.
Well,
Sorry?
A new executive order from Governor Scott, and it's like 15 pages long, so there's a lot to digest. But
it's all about housing, though, right?
yeah, it's all about accelerating housing and removing some of the barriers to building housing. And one aspect that we talked about, it's here in the office today with Brad and Maya, was really kind of repealing what has been a historic focus for wetlands protection in the state. So under state rules, Class 1 wetlands are the most important. Those are still protected. Class 2 wetlands still protected. But what they said was for Class 2 wetlands that are in a place that either has community water and sewer service or a place that had the potential for community septic service, that setbacks would be reduced from 50 feet to 25 feet, like across the board for Class 2 wetlands, and there would be no state involvement whatsoever with Class 3 wetlands. And for the Class 2 wetlands standard, they're going to use this thing that lives on the ANR Natural Resources Atlas called the Vermont State Wetlands Inventory. So this is based on an aerial survey from like 20 years ago, where they did flyovers of the whole state and then did like sort of analysis of plant growth and landforms, and then said, well, we don't know what's on the ground, but we think based on the plants, such as shrubs and areas on either side of a stream bank and a known Class 1 wetland, we think this is where the wetlands are. And so if you click on, say, a part of Underhill and turn on the state wetlands inventory layer, you'll see a crosshatched area where that is. Of course, the problem is it's not verified by ground surveys, where developers have created subdivisions and DRB has told them, oh, you got to get a wetland survey before we can approve this. Then, it's known a more precise delineation of the wetlands is available. But I don't think the state has ever systematically incorporated the ground surveys into their wetland inventory data set. So it's broad brush. And now with the governor's executive order, he's saying we're going to basically remove a lot of stuff that the wetland specialists at ANR used to have to look at, and we're going to say that's just off the table. And so potentially it has significant implications for removing significant roadblocks for projects that are either on the drawing table already or pending before review boards such as Act 250 and local development review boards.
So this is an executive order without legislative
That's right.
approval.
That's right.
So the legislature could come in and cancel this order.
They could. They could also, entities such as the Vermont Natural Resources Council and Sierra Club and Conservation Law Foundation could challenge it in court. And they could ask a court, like the State Environmental Court of the Supreme Court, to enjoin the implementation of these new rules until it's resolved in court, which of course could take months or longer.
I'll
But,
be at it.
yeah, it's an interesting wrinkle, and I have not had time to read the rest of that.
Doesn't the Army Corps of Engineers have a jurisdiction over wetlands as well?
It sounds like,
So how's that mesh with the state?
I'm sure the governor's staff has looked at that,
Right, yeah.
but how much weight they gave it,
yeah, I don't think they did.
yeah, I think they're,
When does the government ever like make wise decisions? Like, sorry, but I just don't see this going anywhere.
strictly off the record, right, Jeff?
Oh, yeah. No, I want it on the record. I'm not anti-development, anti-housing, but like this whole push is just delusional, in my opinion.
Maybe Governor Scott just felt left out from giving executive orders.
Maybe.
Could be.
I just think it needs to be more of a, holistic, like natural process versus a force. We've never done anything great as a species when we force things. So I feel like all this is forced, but that's just my on the record opinion.
Sounds like it will get challenged.
It'll-
Sounds like it will get
I'm
challenged.
sure they'll
Definitely.
soon. So, well, maybe next meeting, Larry, we can circle back on that if you've heard anything from
Sure.
people who are experts, but I do wonder, maybe the answer is unless there's something that we have to do, we don't do anything. If they're gonna get sued, which seems to be what everyone thinks. I don't know. We can discuss it, I guess, then. Is there, one other quick question, is there anything
Well,
that's like people have been hot to trot on that you think we should get on the list of stuff to do for the rest of the year from the land use regs? Like anything that's been on your mind, or no, let's work off Larry's list. Okay. Looks like it's just your list, Larry.
Okay.
I got nothing unless we're in charge of making ordinances for, fines and penalties for open burns in drought season, but
I don't know if we are in charge of that.
New topic.
Are we in charge of that, Larry?
I don't think so.
I didn't know where that fell under ordinances regulations.
I think you're gonna have to run for the select board.
No, I got it. So that's where that lies.
Does Underhill, this is just on that note, does Underhill have a fire marshal? Or,
We do have, I know we have burn permits. Do we have a fire marshal? I think we technically have a fire marshal.
I'm not sure.
Well, from what I understood, Bob is like a state fire marshal. Now I know he's not like specific to Underhill, but he's got like that background. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
he is a fire marshal, I believe.
Yeah, he is, but I don't know if he's for this city or like the state.
Is that a town job, Larry?
I'm thinking more of this, like, doesn't the state designate people at the local level to keep an eye on fire danger and post warnings, and who issues burn permits?
We have an online thing that you go on and fill it out, I think.
I think a fire marshal also has to inspect every home that's sold. Is that the case? So I have heard that.
We didn't have
The
to wait.
fire marshal does? I think commercial properties, the fire people get super involved with. I don't know.
We didn't have an inspection we bought.
Well, it says, it comes up on Bob for Underhill comes up when you type Underhill Vermont Fire Marshal. It says, I am a Vermont State Fire Marshal.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay, so you want to just go through this outline real quick?
yeah.
First one's easy. Section 3.7A says you can only have one principal use and structure allowed on the lot. Well, that just doesn't work anymore. You can have it, your one house plus an ADU plus accessory structure. Just delete that. And then table 3.1 in the Home Act, the legislature said that, or advised towns that they should think about reducing the minimum off-street parking required for residential units from 2 spaces to 1 space per unit, and that's just That's just good practice. Especially for multifamily units, especially for elderly housing, you don't really need to have off-street parking for two spaces for every one unit.
Yeah.
One bedroom unit for an elderly person or for an
Is that
AD.
what it's specific to then, though?
No, it's for all residential units. It's not a requirement, but it's a good practice because anytime you're requiring too many parking spaces for residential construction, you're raising the cost.
So are you thinking that this home act section,
Yeah.
Larry, not to interrupt, but are you thinking that like 1 through 5 would be like a meeting? We could go
Potentially.
through all of those? Okay,
Yeah.
got it, I understand.
Multifamily dwellings should be treated as a permitted use in the flats district. Now require conditional use review.
Mhm.
It makes it a simpler process.
Mhm.
It still requires site plan review, so the DRB still has to go through that, but it shouldn't be considered like someone who wants to make a triplex or a quadplex should not have to go through 2 layers of extensive review. They should just have to make sure that they have adequate lighting and access and all that stuff.
Okay.
Interested persons definition. It's no longer 10 residents. It's been boosted to 20 residents, and that was Act 181 that did
What is
that.
that? What does that mean?
So if somebody other than an abutter objects to a permit that's been issued to build something next door or whatever, or anywhere in town, used to be that you could go around and collect just 10 signatures on a petition from residents, and that would be enough to give you interested person status, meaning that you could appeal the decision. So the legislature said, let's make that 20. I mean, it should be a little harder to challenge a legit decision that was arrived at by the DRB.
Okay.
And then the last one
Well,
is,
is that, did they change anything in regards to the definition of who is an interest?
they did, yeah. They revised that section of statute. But that was really the most important change right there.
Mhm.
So it's
So
adjoining property owners plus the petition.
So does it make it, define an interested person more narrowly so that not so wide and,
Yes.
okay, yeah, good.
I think they also made appeal a little bit more difficult, but we don't have to get into that because it's not addressed in our regs. And then section 5.4 conditional use review, we have a clause that allows the DRB to require increased buffer, setback screening, or building design modifications for housing projects based upon the character of the area considerations. So these are all additional barriers and costs that the DRB could impose on a builder because some neighbors came out to the hearing and said, well, we don't like the way this looks. And we want you to build a 20-foot high fence so we don't have to look at it. Or, put up a line of 1-foot caliper trees or whatever. And these are things that it really should not enter into the DRB's consideration of whether a project is right for the area. Character of the area appeals are just fraught because what one neighbor thinks is it would be a terrible sin in terms of design, and it's something they have to look at. 3 other neighbors could be fine with it, and the town should not be weighing in on aesthetic considerations and should not be coming down on the side of neighbors who want to abuse the legal process to hold up projects that otherwise meet the town standards, because meeting the town standards is what conditional use review is all about. And it should be a level playing field that way. The DRB shouldn't pick favorites or winners based on how something looks to the neighbors.
Yeah, I also think that, Act 47 says that you can't use character of the area or character of the neighborhood in an appeals process.
Yeah.
You can't do it, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're right. I think that's true. And so this would match, have our regulations align with that.
Right.
The only thing, this is not at all a substantive comment, this is a process comment. I do, not to play politics, but I do, before we do that, I think we should run it by Charlie, just so he feels like we've included him.
Of course.
I'm not saying that our decision has to be what Charlie wants, but I do think he's been the chairperson of the DRB since when? Decades?
Yeah.
So we should
Yeah.
run it by Charlie
Of course.
for sure. So
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and the things that on this 1 through 5 that have asterisks on them, they're not necessarily required now, but it seems like if we're tinkering with this area, with aspects of the regs, it makes sense to do these as a group together, and then kind of see what happens, how they sugar out. Because if we do the things that are asterisked, then we don't have to go back and fix it if this municipal wastewater system is built in the flats district. Because that does change things from the state statute perspective, because the state says if you have community water and wastewater service to an area, you have to allow multi-family dwellings, among other things. And so, I'd rather just get them all done together, unless there's a political or other problems that we're not seeing, and that way we don't have to go back and fix it again if this system emerges. So that leads us to the second section, pro-housing policies. These are pretty significant, and 6 and 7, and to some extent 8 as well, are really just sort of good practice from the standpoint of in zoning. It's important to be sensitive to the context and pattern of the built environment. And in the 2 village districts, lots are smaller, housing is older, setbacks are smaller, and so the rules that we have in place for what people can build in those districts, smaller lots, older houses, smaller setbacks, should match what's already there, because otherwise it becomes impossible for people to put reasonable additions and changes to their houses. And that's just not right. I mean, people expect the town to give them some latitude when they have the resources and the will to make improvements to their property, and they shouldn't have to jump through a lot of hoops to do that. For example, you would have to ask for a variance if you wanted to build close to the property line if your house is already 5 feet from the property line.
Right.
And it's just, it doesn't make sense. So I think these 6 and 7 in particular were geared at, well, let's match the required frontage and let's match the minimum lot size to what's already there, so we can enable people to do straightforward, routine improvements to their property.
Yeah, I think we should.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think, well, reading them for me, at least the first 2, 6 and 7, the only caveats I would add to that, I mean, we can obviously talk about it further, but from like an engineering perspective, like, I agree with what you're saying, but those towns were, originally designed, 150, 200 years ago, when environmental concerns were not even thought of and people weren't horse and buggies. We're now, specifically the flats, Route 15 is fast and loud.
Yes.
So a house being 50 feet from that is going to be loud, and I don't think anybody's going to like. I mean, if somebody be like, "Oh, I could build my house 50 foot from the house or road," and then they get in, they're like, "This is a dumb idea. This house is worthless now."
Yeah.
Secondly, half acre sounds great if there's access to a public wastewater system, because I think environmentally, I don't think you can build a new wastewater, like a new septic on a half acre lot. Yeah. So I think we need to add verbiage.
Caveats.
Yeah. Protect that.
Yeah.
Now, under 8, I'm not sure that I get the extent of this. You're saying specify maximum residential density district from
Distinct.
Yeah, distinct. So, are you thinking of areas that already have, say, a whole collection of small lots, basically, in, say, the Pleasant Valley Road, like the developments up around Corbett Road, where you've got, I think, maybe 10, maybe 15 non-conforming lots, basically. So do we turn this into a kind of a separate district within the Pleasant Valley Scenic Corridor District?
I think it's more that the suggestion here is to disentangle maximum density, number of units per acre or whatever, from the concept of minimum lot size. And what I've heard, and I can't say I can fully explain this, but if Darren Shibler or Taylor Newton from regional planning were here, they could do a much better job of explaining this. But minimum lot size allows you to it provides a restriction on chopping up lots into too small chunks, but removing the density consideration from that also allows you to control separately how much housing could go on a particular piece of acreage. I'm not explaining it very well because I'm not sure how Kathy can read it.
This is something which the words are going to make a big difference.
It does make a
And it
difference.
depends on the districts we're talking about. also.
That's right, it does.
It's probably just like increasing like lot coverage
Could be,
ratios.
yep.
Pretty much, it's probably the easiest way to.
Yeah, Taylor Newton, when he was presenting to Charlotte about this, Charlotte had in all of its village districts, it had a minimum lot size of 5 acres in the village. 5 acre minimum lot size. It was
Right.
like, his advice was like, it doesn't make any sense in a village. First of all, it doesn't make any sense in a village district because the typical lot sizes are in half an acre, or 2 acres at the most. And so that's just an undue restriction on any reasonable development. But he said the other thing is that having a minimum lot size as opposed to having a density restriction on the number of units is a more sensible way to direct development in the way you want it in a more developed village area. And Brandy Saxton, in her report, the housing study in 2020, expands on that some, and that is on our website on the Planning Commission page. If anybody wants to read it, to explain the rationale for that.
So that sounds like it'd be good. Oh, sorry, Tim, go
I've
ahead.
been potentially changing like 10-acre zoning to density for a total area, so that would effectively change the 10-acre zoning to whatever density would fit into that sized overall parcel or acreage.
Was she talking about, I haven't looked at this in years.
Mhm.
Was she talking though about, to what Tim's saying, was she talking about like the Mount Mansfield Scenic District, or was she just talking about the center and flats?
Using all zoning.
Oh, it says all zoning in the thing?
This is, well, the thing we're reading, or no, maximum density lots. Yeah, in all zoning districts.
I'm just curious with the housing study was pretty focused on the center and flats at the time it was done.
So you think it's
I'm just surprised by that because the main tenor of the housing study, David, correct me if you think I'm getting this wrong, was like Underhill wants to stay rural, but we think there should be developments in the center and flats.
Yeah.
That was the main takeaway. Right?
Yeah, I think that's
So I'm surprised if that was the
Right.
takeaway from the thing. It could have been, but I mean, I'm trying to remember back 5 years. That was just the headline.
well, we're running into a lot of headwinds changing the acreage requirements for a lot of the districts.
Yeah, so this is the study and the recommendations at the end. Here it is. In all zoning districts, a lawful lot may be developed with a single family or a 2-family dwelling. In the village districts, a multifamily building up to 5 units in flats and 3 units in Underhill Center could be approved on a lot. But Underhill regulations do not specify that a lot must have at least the minimum lot area for each dwelling unit. Effectively, this means that the maximum residential density is 2 dwellings per the minimum lot size for the district outside the villages. In Underhill Flats, it would be 5 dwellings per acre, and in Underhill Center, it would be 2 dwellings per acre. The maximum residential standard would be a replacement for the cap on the number of units in a multifamily building. Linking the number of units to the size of the lot is a more effective means of regulating multifamily housing. If there are community concerns about building size or massing, these would be more appropriately addressed through maximum lot coverage, building footprint, and building mass and form standards. And then she goes on to say, specifying both a maximum residential density and a minimum lot size is a way to allow large village homes to be converted to multi-unit buildings. Village homes like those found in Underhill Flats and Underhill Center historically housed larger households than live in them today. Many of these homes have carriage houses or other outbuildings that could potentially be converted to housing as well. That was her logic.
Hello.
Hi, sorry we're late. Don't mind us.
Can I have you guys sign into there's a clipboard right there on top of the little, it's right here, on top of
Right here.
next to the column here, over here.
Oh, it's on the printer right over here.
Can I ask
No,
Right
you,
here.
Yeah, right here.
can I ask you one question there?
Yeah, of course.
So, just because I'm slow, so let's just stick with the scenic preservation, because that's the thing I used as an example a second ago.
Mhm.
So are we saying that in scenic preservation, you could basically, so it stays at 10 acres,
Mhm.
but under this, you would be able to do like one dwelling per 5 acres. Does that mean like you could have your house in an ADU? Or you could have like a duplex? Does the ADU count as a dwelling? I guess is basically.
I think in this chart, so this chart, this report came out long before the state implemented it changes to ADU standards.
Yeah.
So I think I would read this chart, the one that's up on the screen now, to mean one dwelling plus an ADU.
So you could do a duplex plus an ADU in this one. Okay.
Yeah. So like in the rural district, she's not proposing to change the existing density, just how we interpret it, really,
Okay.
as far as I understand.
Okay. So the real effect is in the center of flats.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we will talk about that more in depth at sounds like that's a good discussion one at the
More
meeting
discussion.
where we, yeah.
Okay. So those three. And then the DRB recommended technical updates. So they wanted to clarify what it means to be subordinate in size and overall appearance from the accessory structure and use definition.
We are scheduling out our meetings for the rest of the year, just so you know what
No worries.
we're talking about. Yeah.
We just live across the hedge, so we thought we'd come over and just, never been to a town hall.
Oh, awesome. Well, welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
We are scheduling what we're going to talk about at the planning commission meetings for the rest of the year, basically. So, okay, Larry, sorry.
Great. PUD application requirements delete the requirement that builder has to submit building elevations and exterior design specs. And this was, again, removing a barrier because when you're in the early stages of a subdivision process, you actually probably don't know what the buildings are going to look like. So right now, because you're required to submit building elevations, we're actually saying, oh, you got to spend the money and hire an architect up front and design all the structures as part of your initial application. And that really is burdensome.
Okay.
Most people don't have the resources to do that when they don't even know if the project is going to get green lighted.
Yeah.
It makes sense to require it maybe in later stages,
Yeah.
but not at the outset. Clarify home industry standards. So there's been some questions that have come up for the DRB about like how big can a home industry be before it's no longer accessory to a residential use. Like if you're creating a crafting business, stay-at-home mom with young children or stay-at-home dad, and you're creating little, I don't know, whatever, barn quilts. That's something my wife is working on right now.
A very Vermont example.
You know, in one of your former child who's moved out bedrooms, I mean, that's clearly, a home industry. But if you're converting a barn that was abandoned for dairy farm use,
Yeah.
and you're actually going to be manufacturing pot gummies, let's say, on a large scale, like large enough to have big trucks come in and take your product and bring it to the market, is that still a home industry if you're employing a bunch of people and moving lots of product in and out? So I guess the thought is that home industry standards really need to be revisited, just to clarify, what we think now constitutes a home industry under the definitions that we have.
And in that giant thing I gave you when you started with the handwritten comments,
Yep.
there's not addressing what you're saying, but we did make some changes when you're going through that on this exact one.
Okay.
David might remember them better because I think he did some of the work, but it was.
You thinking my memory is good?
Yeah, I do think it's very good, David. But it was involving specifically like what happened if you sold the house and like how that worked. So we had some specific
Yes.
comments on that in there just to put that in the back of your mind.
Right, so a home industry gets off the ground,
Yeah.
the owner decides to sell. The new owner is fine with the home industry continuing, but it's no longer being operated by the owner.
That's exactly what we were
Yes,
talking about.
exactly.
So there's some
Yeah.
handwritten comments in there.
Very good. I'll look at
11.
that. Diagram.
Same on 13, by the way, so I don't have to
Okay.
interrupt again.
Okay, good.
We
Yeah.
made some changes in the definitions of 13. So.
Okay, good. And then there's a diagram, page 63, that defines the top of the bank and the top of the slope, which Penny Miller told us was wacko.
Uh-huh.
She said it really did not fit what we know today about how stream banks and erosion works.
Yeah.
It's just, it needs refinement, that's all. It's very.
But this is a hard one. I don't know.
Yeah,
However, we can make some progress on it.
yes.
It'll be a fun discussion topic, David. We'll get to put the diagram up on the screen and everything.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and we can ask, this is an example of something we can ask for help from the floodplain specialist at A&R and from regional planning. Because much wiser heads than us will
Right.
have some examples for us to look at.
Okay.
And then, you mentioned a change accepted agricultural practices to required agricultural practices, because that is terminology that's current in state statute.
Sandy did a bunch of work on those that are in that document that I gave you.
Okay.
Like she changed some things and added the required agricultural practices term. So
Okay.
you can at least have a start, hopefully.
Yeah, and then this last one just was raised by the zoning administrator. This is just a fix for, we have situations that come up from time to time where a lot is landlocked, it doesn't have road access, and somebody wants to do something with a lot. And so in order to do something, they first have to go to the DRB and request access approval, which is usually by way of a driveway. And the driveway, if it's approved, if it's allowed, would be built to whatever standards match what they're going to do. Example, when I worked in Bolton, there was a pretty significant sugar bush that was landlocked. And the company whose land surrounded that lot was a lumber company. And they were willing to grant access through an existing woods road to the owner of that lot for a sugaring project and to build a sugar house. And so they came to the DRB and asked for permission, and the DRB granted it. And they asked for the road to be hardened a little bit for the kind of trucks to support the sugaring. That was it. But right now it says we require site plan review for those kinds of approvals.
Okay.
And it seems like overkill. Yeah, it seems excessive.
Okay.
So that's the list. And does anybody have any thoughts about which of these could be lumped together?
I mean,
I think the way you have it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You could probably crank out 1 through 5 in the meeting, or
1 through 5 seems like it'll be short. We got not a lot of.
and then like the second piece is pretty. I mean, it's 3, so I think they're spread out pretty even.
Yeah.
Well, we
Discussion
got to figure out what the maximum residential, how that works out.
Well, that's a good discussion topic, and that'll take a little
it is.
time.
Yeah.
And then this one, top of bank, will take a little time.
Mhm.
So let's get that's in that meeting.
Well, I'll give you. I'll work on that one if you want, because it's pretty much what I do every day.
You put in your
I mean, that-
engineering skills. to the
Yeah.
table
I mean,
for
honestly, no, I'm gonna try.
free?
I mean, I think the diagram makes perfect sense, but I look at that stuff every day, so it makes sense to me. So maybe it just needs some more clarity.
Well,
with,
maybe
like,
you can
definitions
take
and stuff.
maybe you can take lead on that then, since it is
Well, I
what you do
wonder if,
for you. Thank you.
the wetlands input on that might be helpful also. It might have to do with soil types and,
Well, yeah, I
don't
guess
know
it
what.
depends on how, like, I mean, you could probably have 5 different diagrams for 5 different, scenarios, because it is different.
What if
Wetland,
But you can end up, having to put your house, 300 feet away from a brook or something. Or, I don't know. It's not clear. And I think if there was some input on how the state would view this sort of a thing from a wetlands perspective, I don't know.
What about if we did this, David, for the next meeting? So for the next meeting, we do 1 through 5, and like 15 minutes for, if you have time before the next meeting, for Jeff to look at this diagram and give us his advice, and then with that, we can decide if we want to circle up to the state. Does that work?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, just if we can clarify. It's just a logic sort of thing.
Yeah. Is 15 minutes good? Or?
I'm just saying to actually do it between now.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
I'll put it on Thursday at 4:00.
Okay. No, Thursday.
Yeah.
Good to see you're going to get on it well in advance of the meeting. Why don't you do it at 5:30 on Thursday?
I'm washing dishes, but I can fit it at 5:30. November 2nd.
Okay, so I'm putting in the home act changes 1 through 5.
Okay.
Um,
So then October 16th, we would do the next chunk,
okay.
6 through 8. It feels like there's a little bit to discuss there.
That might
maybe.
be 2 meetings.
You think it's 2 meetings?
Yeah.
I do.
I think
Okay. So then, should we make 6 through 8 2 meetings?
Sure.
Okay. And then the technical updates. Do we think that's a meeting? That's part of one meeting, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which takes us to November 20th, which leaves nothing for December 4th, but we can figure that out before December 4th.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay.
So the November 6th is when we would touch on that? No, not November.
No, yours,
sorry,
top of bank,
October-
top of slope. It would
October
be
2nd.
November 20th.
Oh, we're going.
Oh, wait,
no, October
when you're
2nd.
doing your thing, October 2nd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure I have it in that right.
Yeah.
Then we go from October 16th to November.
Well, November 6th, November 20th.
Mhm.
November 6th is going to be the second half of 6 through 8, David.
Oh, okay.
We're doing 2 meetings on that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then November 20th is going to be all the DRB technical updates, plus number 14.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
And then we're going to figure out December 4th before then.
We could set public hearing
Oh,
process for if we feel we're done.
for all these? Oh,
Yeah.
that would be good. All right. Good call.
We do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we're going to have the blowout party.
That's right. Blowout holiday party. Yeah, put that.
I think you gotta put Brian's in front of all that. 'Cause it's definitely Brian, like he's
Yeah.
definitely excited about it.
Yeah. You can put an asterisk that says Jeff will pay for all. Okay.
I'm planning, prepping, and paying for it.
So you're hiring a band and a
It's
caterer?
more of a solo.
Larry?
You're man, man.
We know this musician.
Yeah.
He goes by the name Larry.
Okay.
Have a drum solo, right?
Yeah. Other than discussing some of these sometimes dry amendments, are there other things that we know we're going to talk about or want to talk about related to what we've already done or want to do?
Well, my guess is this septic thing is gonna bounce in and out a few times, and
Yes.
possibly even like the stuff we sent, or hopefully sending to the select board, will probably maybe get bounced back.
The only other thing, which, I mean, David, this is your thing, so you can cut me off, but at some point, as we know, we wanted to start to talk about the map of the zoning districts, which David has wanted to do for years, if I'm being frank.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
So
Years.
I think
I may die in the process.
I'm taking the other side of that one, David. I think if there's a way to start to think about that sprinkled in, I think that would probably make
Kind of go along with
David happy.
the district or density things that we're
Yeah,
doing?
maybe
Kind
it
of
goes along with.
marry the two.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so we can at least, I know that's a big topic, but we can at least start the conversation. Because it had been sitting waiting behind the resources inventory.
Yes.
So,
Well, and speaking of, we tabled that
oh yeah.
a while ago,
Where
last
is
winter.
that? Do you know? They ever finish it?
Well, they did. I mean, we have the mapping, and we have the
Oh, because we had
end
the
of,
Arrowhead presentation.
right, and we
Yeah.
at the end of the Arrowhead presentation, they had a slide deck, right?
Yeah.
Which we all looked at. And went
Yeah,
through
yeah,
that
that's
with
right.
Jens here when we were upstairs in February, I think. And there were some recommendations for tweaks to zoning district standards that we kind of left
Oh.
at that point. So
Well,
that might
maybe we can sprinkle those in. Too,
Yeah.
With your, let's do that. I mean, that'll fill up our years until we can use them.
okay.
Do you think we'll have survey results by December 4th?
Might.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Then we're definitely totally filled up. Okay.
No, I did just add one thing without talking about it, which was this thing up here. So we have, the state just announced a new grant application process for the municipal planning grants. Last year they were late for issuing the RFP, so we submitted ours in March, I think it was. This year they're early. Usually it closes out in October. So this year they have a November 3rd deadline, so it's back on the typical schedule. And they encourage communities to get their applications going early because there's some required approvals. So one is that we have to talk about it as a planning commission, and the other is that the select board has to approve that we put in the application. And we still have the one that I prepared last winter, which was to do exactly the kind of work that Zach and David proposed for the survey around wastewater potential.
Perfect.
But it also ties to this other work on pro-housing policies, because we want to use the opportunity of surveying folks to get a sense of how people feel about encouraging infill and more dense development in the village centers. And so it actually kind of all dovetails pretty nicely with that conversation as well. So I put it in for October 16th.
Okay.
To have that, because I mean, we can take the draft that I already have, or we can revise it to include more stuff or more.
Should we
activity.
include some one-liner on the map? Or not one line, but like just so that's included if we wanted to use money to help with that project in some way?
I don't think we're ready for that part, for remapping the zone districts, but I think we first have to start with where do we think the zoning districts district line should change.
Okay.
So it's like first do the to-do list and the vision statement about how we think the town could better handle zoning, because there were the questions about should it be based on distances from roads or should it be follow property lines. I remember that being brought up.
Yeah.
And then the other question was, this ties to the natural resources inventory as well, because there is a question of for habitat protection, do we want to have overlay districts for forest blocks, for example, or for wildlife corridors? And that ties to zoning as well, because we don't have those now. And an overlay district is a separate district on top of the existing district rules that have protections for certain things or additional requirements. For example, we have a flood hazard zone overlay district, so along the river corridors, Browns River Corridor and others, there are additional requirements if your house is in a flood zone to what you can and can't build, or how you can add to your house, or what happens if your house is flooded and it has to be rebuilt. So I think natural resource protection districts are also overlays with additional requirements for review, but it does require changes to the zoning map.
So should we flip David's zoning district map changes back 1 week and put like review natural resources inventory conclusions?
Sure.
The prior week, since it seems like.
So has that overlay been prepared?
No. We have to. That's why I said maybe we should review the natural resources inventory conclusions first. Nothing's been done.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Nothing's been.
Nothing really. Nope.
No.
A lot of discussion still could be done.
Well, those are big.
Yeah.
Those are month-long.
Yeah, and then not to put a damper on your holiday party plan, but
It's not possible, Larry, because I will take a vote and smash whatever topic to you.
so we talked about Brian's impending retirement from this body, and we want to circle back to recruitment, succession planning. So if we haven't talked about it before the second meeting in December, we really need to. We probably will talk about it before.
Yeah, is that, I mean, that would be fine from my perspective, but probably not great for you guys. You would want to have it sorted before then, who's going to be the chair, right? Should we move that up to like November 6th or something like that? Or October 16th?
Maybe.
Because it might take, if no one wants to do it, if it's currently on the planning commission.
Yeah. What do people think?
Is it possible to retire from an unpaid position?
Yes.
It is. So, does anyone have thoughts on this for 2 minutes? And if not,
That or you?
not on me, on me in general.
No.
You can. We'll have time to make fun of me in December.
No, I was talking about,
Oh, we're talking roast. We're gonna have a roast.
no, that thing or the retirement chair recruitment thing?
Well, is there any thoughts on this schedule, on the chair thing, and then I wanted to take a few minutes for Larry's group discussion, which we're way behind on now. So
Okay, I think that looks.
this
I
looks
think
great.
we're gonna
This is
fall-
great.
Yeah, I feel like we fall behind, so let's not add more.
Yeah,
Because we
I think we
always-
might fall behind on this.
Yeah.
actually.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so that's good. All right.
Oh,
Maybe the 2 minutes on the chair thing is everyone just, maybe on the next meeting or the meeting after, we should try to figure out if no one's interested in it, like, how do we find someone who wants to be chair, right? So. Larry, that takes us to your group discussion. Are people in favor of forming an active pro-housing task force in Underhill? Is there a role for the PC? I'm sure everyone saw and read. Larry, what was that? Was a commentary piece.
yeah, it's like an op-ed piece that I wrote for the Charlotte News on my way out the door there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I noticed it was your byline was like the former or recently
My
retired.
swan song, yes.
So I don't know. Do people think this is a separate thing from the planning commission? I'm just trying to kick off group discussion here.
Like are you asking if this YIMBY thing should be part of?
I think what Larry was asking, correct me if I'm wrong, is we've done this in the past. Now, of course, I can't remember because I was speaking about it, but we have had subcommittee is not the word, but there was like a little extra group that worked on something and came back to the planning commission. What was it? It's killing me. Does anyone remember? This was like a year and a half ago. Remember, David? It was like a whole, it was like a task force thing. Oh my God, it's killing me.
Was Sandy part of that?
Yeah, Sandy was part of it. I remember them doing it. I remember who was on it, and I cannot remember what it was for. But anyway, they started a task force. I think it might have been about affordable housing, to be totally honest. But no, it wasn't a food show. Anyway, the point is, we, the planning commission, authorized a task force, I think is what it was called, and they had meetings totally unrelated to us. Sandy was on both, and the mission of it would be to come up with ideas for a pro-housing task force in Underhill. This is what you're saying, right?
Right, yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying this is a subcommittee on the planning commission. I put it.
That's how it was done before.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not.
No, so this is really more along the lines of, and this comes from tough experience that I had with Charlotte in particular, trying to learn from my problems in the past, issues in the past. So we've been talking a lot about this survey and the wastewater project as it could be a real asset to accelerating infill development in the Riverside Flats district if it happens, and how the planning commission wants to sort of test the waters, get its feet wet a little bit, and engage with residents on it to find out if this is something people are interested in and would pursue. But the underlying that set of questions in that process is what level of additional housing development do residents understand is needed, and what level of development would they find acceptable or support? And the challenge that we faced in Charlotte is that we spent an entire year doing a very deep dive into asking these kinds of questions for the entire town. We did two rounds of surveys. We did multiple sort of focus groups or informant interviews. We did a design charrette that attracted 40 people. It was very in-depth exploration of what types of designs people wanted to see in terms of the public infrastructure and community facilities and housing in the two village centers. And there are consultants that we contracted with produced this marvelous report, profusely illustrated, and then like half a dozen people in the town started screaming bloody murder. They claimed that I was secretly being employed by Regional Planning Commission, or that I was being paid under the table by developers to foster inappropriate levels of high density development, multifamily, 6-story buildings in the 2 historic village centers, and all this stuff, which was, I mean, of course, as a public official, I couldn't really respond to straightforwardly. But it occurred to me then that what was really missing from the conversation was an organized group of residents who said, these are the stuff that people hearing are saying is malarkey. And we were able to demonstrate through the surveys that we did that 90% of the town residents supported this emerging vision of a more dense village in the 2 historic villages, particularly in the West Village. And people, we didn't have a group of people that we could call upon to show up at the select board meetings and speak for the majority. Mm-hmm. The only people who were heard were these basically NIMBY folks who, were in reaction and fomenting, disinformation and misinformation about what the project was really trying to do. So my takeaway from that is that without an organized group of pro-housing folks in town who will understand the need, understand the depth of the housing crisis, understand how the housing crisis affects Underhill today in terms of elders who want to move out from bigger homes but still stay in town, and to move into smaller spaces, thus freeing up houses for next generation, in terms of working families who can't afford $200,000 plus income that you need to finance a mortgage on a $500,000 house. Renters, the needs of renters who can't buy, won't be able to buy, but need to be able to have a house that they can, an apartment that they can afford to live in without also not being able to pay for food or healthcare. Mm-hmm. Just those kinds of aspects that people who understand those things and are willing to show up at select board meetings and a town meeting and speak for these needs. And so that's where I'm coming from. If we don't ask for people who are interested in this to come forward and to form themselves into, I would call like a housing task force or something like that. And it would really be more of a sort of a public education kind of an effort. Like people in the group could work together to develop some data and come up with interesting ways to present that data and take responsibility for sharing it with their community residents. That would be, I think, a big step forward. Because when push comes to shove, if the only voices the select board are hearing are the naysayers, this thing is just going to come to a grinding halt.
My 2 cents, and then I'll shut up, and David was the only other one who was here for all this stuff. My 2 cents is, I guess I'm torn as to the role the Planning Commission plays, but I guess it won't be here, but were I thinking about this, I would think that the right place to start, I guess it depends what kind of, if it's an advocacy group or if it's trying to take, because like when we did the 2020 housing study and we did public surveys, I'm going to be a little cute about this, but my takeaway was, and when we did the last town plan, my takeaway was Underhill, speaking for the survey results, Underhill is a rural community, rural character, we've seen that term a million times in everything we use, and that's how we want it. Right. And then in the housing study, it basically said, this is kind of classic human nature, Underhill's a rural community that's super important, and I think we should have some development, but it probably shouldn't be by my house.
Right. I just don't want to look at it.
Over there.
I don't want to look out my living room
Do you
window.
agree with that? Do you disagree with that, David? It said like it should be in the flats in the center. Underhill should stay rural. We want to be a rural community. So my concern for the planning commission as an entity is I think we need to figure out, or you all need to figure out, like, I mean, I have a view, but I won't be here at that point. But like, I think the planning commission can't ignore the results of the housing study and the survey. So you've got to figure out, if you want to avoid what you're talking about, Larry, I think that's the number one thing you've got to figure out, because that is public feedback that came in. And that was my takeaway from it. I don't know, David, you were the only other one here. Did you agree that was?
I think the takeaway that I got from it was that there's not much we can do in town except through the accessory dwelling units, basically. And if we start getting into changing the zoning districts, you know, the acreage requirements and the different zoning districts, you know, I don't want to do that myself personally. I think that's going to run into a whole lot of opposition. But
you guys know?
there's not much that can be done, really, realistically.
Do you guys know? I mean, I know this was Sandy's baby, but do you know what happened to that habitat project that was over there? Like, where is that?
I know bits and pieces, but it's like I would be giving you. It's in court.
Yeah.
But I would be giving you like bad information. I know it immediately got objections from neighbors over flooding.
Yeah.
And then, do you know more, Jen? And then it sort of
Sandy's
came
my
back.
neighbor. I
and
can
got-
ask her.
Oh,
I'll
there
find
you
out.
go. Yeah.
I'll find out for you.
It's in court though, correct?
Yeah.
The only
It's
reason I'm asking is
environmental.
because I'm just thinking of that as like the most recent example. Yeah, litmus test, exactly. Because
It immediately got objections. I attended the first public hearing. It was a Zoom, and it's not like 1,000 people attended it. I think like 20 people attended it, right? But it had multiple objections in that.
I mean, I've only been here, short time, but like just talking to the people I've talked to, like neighbors and people I meet, like, yeah, it's kind of, I feel like most people's philosophy is just like, yeah, I'm okay driving to Essex or Burlington or Colchester, whatever, to get my things and keep it nice and chill where I'm living. I feel like that's like the overall, from the people I've talked to, I've met like nobody that's like, yeah, well, I want, multi-family housing, just row houses all the way down 15, like there's nobody that I've met.
There's no constituency for that.
Yeah.
I did hear, by the way, from a guy who's a retired construction manager in town. He, just on the basis of putting this on the agenda that was posted, he said, I've been waiting for something like this for years. I'd love to be involved in a group like that. So, I think if we put out a call and we start to network about it, like ask ourselves, who do we know in town who might be interested in this effort and might want to come forward and join the group. We probably only need maybe 4 or 5 people to make a critical mass and to get things rolling. That would be great. And again, it's not something that necessarily needs to be chartered or approved by the Planning Commission, but I was really brought it here because I thought I wanted to run the idea by all of you and see if you thought it made sense to pursue it. I have a very old background going back to right after I graduated from school as a community organizer, and so I understand, how to get something like this started and how to get it rolling. But it's clearly not part of my job description here to do that, and so I at least wanted to run it by.
No, thank you. I think the other thing we could do, I'm not going to find this in my email at the drop of a hat, but it was a climate change task force. It was not housing.
Oh, that's right.
That's Sandy. I was going to say, maybe you can ask Sandy what it was about, but that was also going to make me look like a moron. So, it was the climate change task force. It had nothing to do with that.
You want to take that one to the pillow tonight, huh?
Yeah.
Stew over it all.
Yeah. So, that's one way to approach it. And we can circle back on this. We could say, we're looking to study, I don't know if this is what you're looking to get, Larry, but we're looking to study the issue of affordable housing in Underhill.
Yeah.
Your starting points are this housing study, which is quite dated at this point, from 2020. Have a go at it and report back to the planning commission. That would be one way to do it.
Okay.
You could argue whether or not that was successful with the climate change task force. They had some conclusions. We got,
Yeah, she made a whole spreadsheet, but we.
I don't know that a ton has happened with it, to be totally honest.
It seems like the survey will give us some sort of temperature of what people are thinking as well, to
Yeah.
reinforce what you heard previously.
We have all the survey results from them somewhere. I think it was a 300, so like a 10% response rate,
Yeah.
which is not bad, I guess.
Yeah.
I'd be curious if we looked at other countries with similar population sizes and similar density to see what they do. Like Sweden's areas in Scandinavia and stuff like that, because they live village to village as well.
Mhm. So it sounds like the follow-up item on this is to discuss it again at the next meeting. I'm thinking out loud here.
Well, I mean, first of all, I wanted to feedback. Do you think this is generally a good idea and this is worth doing? And it would be announced from the get-go as not a planning commission project. It would just be more like an idea we had and a request for people that we could put out in Front Porch Forum to, to join this new group.
Why doesn't everyone, how about if we do this? How about if everyone thinks about it and next meeting we'll decide what we think on that exact question. Is that good?
Yeah, and by the way, as you're percolating on it, let me think of people that you could suggest to me to reach out to. Because, we could put out all the announcements we want.
I mean, Sandy is the
Yeah.
obvious number one.
Yep.
She's like knee deep on the housing project in the church, right?
Okay.
So this and the food shelf, I think, are her things.
Totally.
Right? So, and she knows, she was on the planning commission for years. Like she checks all the boxes of someone who would have an opinion on this, whether it's a good idea.
With your departure, we need to be openly recruiting to fill that spot, correct?
Yeah, unless it's weird because the only people who weren't here last meeting to talk about it were Zach and Tavid. Zach came late and Tavid wasn't here. I don't know if either one of them is interested in it. I haven't reached out to them, but we should discuss it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because if no one wants to be chair,
I
what
guess you
happens
can't
then?
leave.
It falls to David as the vice chair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were by default
Until-
elected, David.
Yeah, I'm gonna start doing
He could agree to be appointed and immediately quit.
Yeah.
And then where would we be?
Okay, but yes. Jen, so,
Okay.
Okay, last thing is the minutes. Does anyone have any comments, questions on the minutes from last meeting?
They seem very short, but suddenly.
Well, it's, these are the AI minutes, right?
Yes.
Oh, AI.
They were prepared with the assistance of an
No
AI.
wonder they're so short.
Yes.
Slacker.
Yeah. Yes. Sweet.
Well,
It's working for free, right?
it is,
Yellow
but
paper.
the draft was created by our recording secretary. So she takes the AI summary and then she makes it readable.
Oh, I didn't know
It
that.
makes complete
that's
sentences
great.
and
Yeah.
deletes things that are repetitive or
Okay.
whatever. So, yeah,
So it was the
it does
AI
have some
with the
logic.
final touch by human.
by Monica.
Okay, well then, is there a motion to accept these minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Bart. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor? Unanimous? Okay, anything else, Larry?
All I got.
David?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? No one? Everyone wants to stay here? Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, Larry. Thank you for coming.